All right, good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you again for joining me on another episode of Chris's Warrior Path, where we discuss topics mainly on health and self-defense, but we will tend to go into other topics as well. And thank you for joining me into my second live cast for today. If you haven't heard my first one today, it's this second live cast is really more of a continuation. I just noticed that because I do film my podcast on my camera, where I would actually post that on my YouTube, my BitChute, and my Rumble accounts. So if you want to see my facial expressions on certain topics, then you could definitely check me out over there. It's under Chris's Warrior Path. But anyways, I was trying to film the first one, and there were some technical difficulties near the end when I was talking about solutions and how you deal with toxic, narcissistic people in your life, particularly family. And so I just wanted to continue on with the second one. It's not going to be too long. And I'm just going to restate what I had mentioned at the end of the first podcast, but I'll give a little more detail into that. And so, for those who are just joining in on the second one, I was talking about how I came to an epiphany because it was Easter yesterday and also Lent season. And for me, it was more of a rebirth for me and reforming some of the things. And one of the things that I came across was assessing who is productive in my life and who isn't. Who's giving me bullshit that I don't want to fuck with anymore. Because if they're going to be doing that where they're taking away from my table versus trying to be productive and putting something onto my table, I mean, for some people it's going to be very hard. For others, it won't be very hard. And if you're going to be wasting time and bringing negative energy, just giving me a lot of bullshit, I'm not going to deal with that anymore. I just don't. I've come to that point in my life. I mean, I've been on this earth for some time, but I've just gotten to that point with all this experience, a lot of life experience, to where I know who to cut people out or who to weed people out and who I should keep into my circle. And it's just interesting that it just seems like by the day and night where the circle gets smaller, where you know who really has your back and who doesn't. And you've probably heard me in a number of episodes where I said, if there's anything that this lockdown has taught me that was really good, it would be who really has your back. I mean, this goes for a number of people, actually, and those tend to be my very close friends and even good family members. But you also have the ones that are there to bullshit you, which there's really no reason for you to keep. And so, talking about the last live podcast episode, I was talking about the solutions, and I couldn't help but refer to videos by a psychologist named Dr. Ramani, and you'll find her on YouTube. And when I saw her episodes last night, I was very impressed. She was very articulate in explaining how, or basically she's explaining about narcissism in the family, whether it's siblings, whether it's parents. And I highly recommend you check that out if you're curious about the subject. Because I think this is a misunderstood subject, and the term narcissism, along with toxicity, it tends to be overlooked in a way and misunderstood. But when I listen to her videos, when I listen to her, I mean, I couldn't help but resonate and see that within my own family. And I hate to say that, And when I say family, I mean blood family. And no one wants to put up with that. Maybe some people are embarrassed to say that. And maybe others where it's like, I can't believe it. You know, your own blood, and you've grown up with this person or people, but you didn't notice any of this until you hear from people who resonate on the same level and the same vibe and talk about this subject. And you're thinking, oh, well, this person, well, they tend to be very manipulative and abusive. I mean, when I say abusive, it doesn't mean slap and punch, but even verbally abusive. And they try to blame shit on you, even though it's not your fault. And these are people close to you, quote unquote, close to you, whether it's family or friends. But I'm just talking about family right now, blood family, where, you know, you wouldn't even expect it. And it's interesting how I'm also listening to a number of life coaches as well, where if you try to be successful in your life, it's usually the people that are close to you who you thought had your back are the ones that are going to turn their backs on you. And they won't be as supportive as you thought that they were going to be. So definitely, if you haven't noticed that, I would watch out for that. Because out of nowhere, they could definitely have a smile in front of your face, but metaphorically speaking, have that knife behind them. And they'll tend to turn on you. And back to what I was saying with Dr. Ramani, how she was actually talking about, actually technical difficulties here with my mic, but actually, well, what Dr. Ramani was saying about people in your life being manipulative and abusive. But what also got to me was her solutions into how to deal with narcissistic people, and in addition to toxic people in your life, particularly family that does that. And this resonates to, by the way, shout out to my main martial arts instructor. He's a Kempo Jiu-Jitsu instructor, the original Japanese Kempo Jiu-Jitsu instructor. Well, he teaches that original style. And he said something very profound that Dr. Ramani had reiterated as well. I couldn't help but put the two together. And it's basically what they both were saying about being confident with yourself and having that balance in yourself and living authentically, being true to yourself. I think it's very hard these days, and especially we live in this cancel culture, this entitled world of well, things are getting canceled, and things like everyone has to follow the trends, be a fucking hipster, but they're not staying true to themselves. Unfortunately, they're not living authenticity, or they're not living with authenticity. Tongue twister right now. But yeah, they're just not living true to themselves. They don't know themselves, and I think that that's an issue going on, especially these past few years. But and if for those who haven't noticed, hopefully wake up soon, or if you haven't woken up at all. And what's up on What's Up World? Thank you for entering. And Rainbow Wendy 39, thank you for entering. Appreciate you joining us. But yeah, it's just I don't think, unfortunately, that people, or you'll look around in your life, how many people really live their truth and authentically? Or are they just following trends? They're following the peer pressure going on. And for me, I see, and I'm not going to ride on my high horse and try to sound cocky and arrogant and all that, because I was guilty of this years ago until I started learning and getting off the matrix and, if you will. They use the term red pill and all this other stuff, but really what I call it is living truthfully. And I've learned this in martial arts, and I attribute this to my current instructor. So I was greatly appreciated, or I appreciate that. But living truthfully, and if you look around, I don't think that a lot of people are, unfortunately, and they have to get caught up in the trends, and I guess the term you want to call is hipster. And then they fuck around with different things, but then they lose themselves, who they are. And back to what Dr. Romani was saying, of living with authenticity, that is one of your best weapons against a narcissist, in addition to toxic people. Because you notice that if you live truthfully and you speak the truth in front of these types of people, and you call them out on their bullshit, they're going to back off. Either that, or they'll get in their feelings and they'll throw in their temper tantrums and all this shit. But eventually, they're going to wear out, and they're going to say, oh, well, you know what? My tricks are not going to work on this person, because this person's the real deal. He or she. This person's the fucking real deal. My bullshit's not going to work anymore on this person. So I'm not going to try it on this person. Rather, I'm going to go pick on this other person and be a bully. But that's pretty much what she had said. And again, I attribute this also with my martial arts instructor as well, where living truthfully, you're cutting all the bullshit in your life. And hey, what's up, OJ28? Thank you for entering in. Appreciate you. And so, again, living truthfully, that's one, or which she terms as a weapon against these narcissistic, toxic people, calling them out on their bullshit. Because like I said in my first live podcast as well, where I've had siblings, and I was talking a bit about sibling rivalry and how it just usually starts at a young age. And unfortunately, it evolves over a period of time. As you get older, it starts to get into things such as legal and estate planning when your parents pass away. And I know this because after my mother passed away a couple of years ago, and years before her passing, when she was going in and out of hospitals, battling illnesses, it's just crazy how shit gets exposed during hard times. And again, it's almost like the lockdowns that have been happening this past year, where truth and shit just gets exposed. Even whether it's in your own family, your friends, or your colleagues, things will get exposed. And people could cover things up and not live truthfully, not live authentically. But guess what? They're going to get called out sooner or later. I could almost guarantee it. Especially you leave your eyes open. And the way you deal with that, tell them, fuck your bullshit. Well, you don't have to literally tell them that, but I think you get my drift. You know what I'm saying. It's just, if you call out the truth, they're going to be very surprised. It's basically dealing with a bully. And why do bullies do what they do? Because they think and they know that they can. And that's why you learn over life and over a period of time, and say to yourself, set those boundaries. What I said in the first live podcast today is to set those boundaries. What are you willing to accept? What are you not willing to accept? And there's a saying that says, no one will ever say or do anything that you don't let them. So think about that. No one will ever say or do anything in which you don't let them. So if you let them fuck you around, you let them talk shit to you, you're just inviting drama in your life. Drama that you possibly don't need, considering all the shit that's going on in this world. And hey, what's up, Asante? I hope I said that name right, but thank you for entering. And so, let's see, living authentically and telling the truth. Those are your best weapons against toxic and narcissistic people. And another weapon is to cut them off. And like I said before, that's going to be very hard for some of you. You're going to be like, fuck, and do I really need to? And it also depends to who it is. Now, if you're in a toxic marriage, then of course that's going to be a tricky situation. Well, unless if they're slapping you around and beating you up and verbally abusing you, that will give you the green light to say, go fuck yourself. I'm done with you. But if you're probably dating someone, then you say, no, well, you know what? We're not on the same vibe. I gotta go. I gotta let you go. But family, blood family, like I said, it's the fact that if you've been if you grew up with them, they were your first playmate, and then now you see over a period of time where you deal with real world adult issues, you start to know. And that's where it gets really hard as far as cutting people off and blocking people off. I had mentioned that I had blocked family off from phone numbers, and I had deleted and blocked people off from my social media. I'm to that point where I'm saying, fuck this shit. I don't need any negativity. I don't need any unnecessary drama. So I don't need you. I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to find people that are going to be supportive of me. And it's interesting because it's usually strangers that tend to be supportive more than your own blood family. But back to this whole cutting off situation. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be very difficult for some of the people you may have to cut off in your life. And I'm not going to tell you who, but you're going to have to make that decision. I mean, I'll have you make that decision. Everyone's situation's unique. Everyone's life, they're on their own life path. But again, I will reiterate, okay, if you're in a toxic job where people are micromanaging you, the boss is calling you out for even stupid shit, or if you got coworkers gossiping and airing out details about you, and they're willing to backstab you, that would be more like, why am I in a fucked up marriage or a dating relationship where I'm not even appreciated? And there are so many opportunities out there. Why do I need to stay here when I could go and find someone else who is willing to reciprocate? And that's the key word, reciprocate what I'm willing to give to them. And I believe that's hard for a lot of people to do. And I admit, I mean, over a period of time, it took me a while before I said, well, you know what? Okay, time to put the big boy pants on and grow that spine, and then say, you know what? You're out. You're done. And when you're ready, and you're ready to level up, you could come back. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm into forgiveness. I'm a believer in that. But there's a saying that, hurt me once, shame on you. Hurt me twice, shame on me. So it's a matter of how much shit you're willing to put up with. And again, that goes to setting boundaries. But until then, if they're not willing to level up to your standards, and I don't mean that in a controlling way, leveling up to your standards. I'm saying if they're not willing to show the same type of respect and love to you, then there's really no reason for them to have, or for you to have them in your life. That's just adding drama to you. And just like toxic food where it's breaking down your body, there are toxic people that will also break down your body over a period of time. And this goes back to my introduction to all my episodes of Chris's Warrior Path, where I talk about topics mainly on health and self-defense, but I tend to veer into other topics as well. Well, this thing about narcissism and toxicity, that goes in both health and self-defense. Because for one, you don't want to break yourself down with your health, keeping this excess baggage. And then number two, you're defending yourself, because you don't know somewhere down the line how this person is going to behave towards you. be abusive to you, and to the point you may have to call the cops or whatever. They may try to push you to the point where you need a restraining order. That's how abusive they are. But anyways, those are my two main points there as far as what you can do and what are considered good weapons against the narcissist and the toxic person is, one, you live authentically. Know your path. Know who you are, your truth. Stick to that. Stand up. Put both feet on the ground. And number two, if you need to, cut people off who aren't productive in your life.